I've never had any problem expressing my opinions, but what we're doing here is bigger than that. These are conversations that need to be had in an unfiltered way. Drag racing's all I've ever done. It's all I care to do. I respect the history, I appreciate how far we've come, but I want more for this sport, and I'll fight for it. It's uncut, it's unfiltered, this is the show of shows. The biggest names in drag racing. No holds barred. This is the great American motorsport, drag racing. Prove me wrong, I'll wait. Hey gang, Wes Buck here, Drag Illustrated Magazine, checking in. It is Wednesday, May 10th, 2023. We appreciate you joining us here. I want to remind everybody that the Wes Buck Show is brought to you by our friends at FloRacing, Redline Synthetic Oils, Type A Motors, Racers Club, and of course, the gang up the road in Oklahoma City, Stroud Safety. Appreciate all you guys supporting this project and being a part of it for so long. We're on episode 301. We're like in, Kenny Bernstein territory. Wasn't that it, Mike? JT, 301 mile an hour?
Yeah.
Gainesville, Florida. Gainesville. 19.
Yeah, you're asking JT? He's a drag racing historian.
Yeah, sorry to the whole world out there for referencing or leaning on JT for my drag racing statistics. But anyways, we've got a very special guest for you guys today. She's become a little bit of a fixture on the podcast circuit. It's kind of a crazy thing to see her rapid ascension. She was hanging on the door of a Pro Stock car for as long as I can remember, and now she's essentially a superstar in the media world. Let's give it up for our friend, longtime friend of Drag Illustrated, Courtney Enders. What's up, Court?
Hi, guys. I know y'all missed
the applause?
me.
We doing it?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, well, welcome to the show.
Yeah,
JT never participates in the applause.
He doesn't.
I just watch you guys and laugh.
Yeah.
I figured you'd at least do it for me, JT.
Yeah, dude.
Thank you.
See, he'll do whatever you ask. He'll do whatever you ask. I promise you that. Well, hey, I wanted to talk real quick. Like over the weekend, I found out in the green room here that nobody else watched it but me. But I guess it's a bummer that nobody watched the 149th running of the Kentucky Derby. Like I guess I'm just way more of a geek, dude, for big events.
I told you, I tried to watch it, and after 7 hours of lead up, I missed the race. I went outside for like 30 minutes, come back in, race is over. They don't tell you
I didn't know it was on.
Happening.
We used to have a big party.
How do you not know it's on? How do you miss that?
I don't know. Yeah, I was busy doing stuff.
Yeah, the 20 hours.
That it was. Yeah.
About.
You know what we should do is go to the Kentucky Derby. That's
we put it on the books for next year.
We used to throw a huge party, and then you get to draw for your horse, and 1 year we did a big auction. We auctioned off all the horses, and it was fun as hell.
Derby parties are hot right now. I see a lot of people having.
Everybody dude, it's like wear the hat and drink the juleps.
Yeah, down here in Texas, like every block there was like a Derby party going on, like in the greater Fort Worth area. It seems like the reason I brought it up though is a couple things. We think about how long the NHRA has been around, 70 years, and it's like, holy shit, that's like really significant. But then you talk about an event that's been around for 149 years, and it's almost overwhelming, to be honest. And I guess my next kind of thought on this is do you guys watch any of these big sports happenings, whether it's, the aforementioned Kentucky Derby, the Daytona 500, whatever. Do you guys watch any of that stuff and like dream of what could be for drag racing?
Yeah.
No doubt, man. That's where we have to get our inspiration.
I think every time we watch anything, we're always like, how can that adopt over into motorsports to some extent?
I watch the Kentucky Derby just because, like anything motorsports I like, but I watch that because it's a topic of conversation anywhere you go, and it's just current event type stuff. And I think that having drag racing be on that level is big dream.
How much of it, for me, and Courtney, you can kind of bring the flow racing perspective to this that I would love to hear because, and I'm getting some crazy feedback somewhere. I don't know if anybody else is getting that, but I'm getting some.
Yeah,
you hear it as well? I don't know where it's coming from, but anyways, I'm just curious from FloRacing's perspective. I don't think it is you, Courtney. From Flo's perspective, what do you take, like, what kind of effort is going into creating all that build-up stuff? Because it feels like Flo's got the live stream down, like best in industry, best in class. But if we use the Kentucky Derby as an example, the race was 2 minutes. It was all the other stuff, like all the buildup and all the profile pieces. Because like when I'm watching it, I'm literally taking notes going, oh, why didn't we do this for World Series? Why didn't we do that for World Series? We got to do this because they've turned every single thing into a happening and a content opportunity. Do you guys feel that pressure like internally to be like, okay, we've got to go beyond the best definition cameras and the best angles of our live stream?
Absolutely. I mean, I think I can speak for Flo. That's the reason they hired me, was they got into the space and figuring out what drag races worked with the Flo platform. But leading up to it, like, of course we want people to watch it, but awareness is key. And so working with a series like PDRA and doing these driver profiles with Corey and all of these things that make people who might not have watched, just like we do with the Kentucky Derby, I could give a crap what horse was what. I think they're cute. I know nothing about horses, but when they do those kinds of things, you find yourself wanting to root for certain people. And I think that the drag racing's missed the boat on that for a lot of years. You know, our coverage is what it is on Fox and the racing's there, but like you said, the race is 6 seconds long. You know, we may have multiple rounds of that, but we've got to get people intrigued in that. And Flo has, especially in the drag racing sense, if you go over to the FloRacing side of it on social, as opposed to Flo Drag Racing, they've got it down to a T. And they've got all of these driver profiles, lead ups to the events, advertisements even coming into it. But Flo Drag Racing is kind of new. They hired me in June, and that was one of the main prerogatives of it.
Did you say that horses are cute?
She basically just said that horses were cuter than
all of that I said. That's what y'all took from it.
Yeah, that's what horses are scary. I don't know about you guys. I'm scared. I'm scared to death. I'm scared of horses.
I have a buddy
I've never ridden a horse.
Scared of them.
And I don't even want to get close to one. Yeah, man,
well,
I mean,
I got thrown off a horse. and it hurt. And I've never forgiven the horse.
We got to get back on that.
Well, this is the difference. I was born and raised in Texas, boys. Born and raised in Texas. Horses are cute, not scary.
Okay. Fair enough. You won't see me on one though.
No, I'm not a fan at all. And I don't know that I will ever be a fan. But I'm much like you. I don't really have any interest necessarily in, like, I don't know how you say, the horses themselves or any of that stuff. My interest was purely in the production of the event, like how they were doing this, how it all was. That's the thing, is I go to these NHRA races and I feel, or in all drag races, and it does feel like everybody puts their camera down when there's not a car doing a burnout. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no one's even paying attention if we're not racing. But then you look at the Kentucky Derby as an example, bro, there was a few minutes of horse racing over the course of the whole weekend, but they've managed to create an environment where the live event atmosphere, they had 150,000 people there. And you're excited to be there, and you're just proud to be there and be part of it. And I do feel like we've got to start to trend more that direction as a sport. But I do think it starts with pomp and circumstance, all the bells and whistles. You got everybody dressed to the nines, wearing their hats, doing all their things. But then all that additional shoulder programming. I know who owns all the horses. I know who all rides all the horses. I know who trains all the horses. And I was thinking about that. Courtney, you could drive the bus on this, like in the NHRA. There is so much lost opportunity over there in the media center. And like, why aren't we hearing after every race, we should hear from the team owner, the winning driver, the winning team owner, and the winning crew chief. Like, those are 3 more stories to tell, 3 more personalities to introduce people to, 3 more people that people can either love or hate or somewhere in the middle. Right. I mean, I think that's some stuff that we're kind of glossing over.
Even second place.
Yeah, man.
I mean, like,
we dropped the ball on
what they did wrong.
Before the World Series, I told everybody I told our media team that I wanted to make sure that at the end of the race, we interviewed the winner, the winning driver, the winning crew chief, the winning team owner. And I understand how in those moments, those things don't happen. And it's easy to but as we move forward, like, you got to do it. Like, you have to do those things, especially if you want to kind of grow and become an iconic event or whatever, or have the attention of the world, if you will.
It's kind of the same thing. I mean, I may get a little flack for saying this, but think about it. You've got a horse, you've got a race car, you've got a jockey, you've got a pilot, you've got a team owner, you've got a horse owner. And it's kind of the same structure. And the Kentucky Derby, like, I couldn't tell you the jockey's name or what he looked like. I just knew what color he was wearing, but I'm watching, looking for the team owner and his bougie ass dressed wife to see where they go to, and they go to them instantly. And it just shows that it's three, way more, but they concentrate on those three pillars of it. Whereas taking nothing away from the car or the driver, but the car is the star in our sport, and the driver even should be more of it than there. I get that we're basically keeping space shuttles on the ground at this point on four wheels, but having that separation and putting forth the, not fame, but the notoriety that each one of those deserves, because it takes 1,000 people to make this happen. And jockeys and race car drivers kind of are in the same spot.
I think there's a ton of comparisons, like a ton of really good comparisons. And I think that it's fun to talk about this stuff because I always love the king for a day. Like, hey, if they gave me the keys to the castle, here's what we would do. I love those discussions. And I think it's fun and healthy for the sport to just look around, because a lot of times they think I was this guy. I remember telling this story. I remember my little apartment I lived in on Salter Place was the street name in Kirksville, Missouri. And I was working from my home office, which was just my bedroom essentially. And my phone rang and it was David Rare. Rare Morrison Racing Engines, Arlington, Texas, this icon. I couldn't even, a little bit of a name drop right there. I feel like Stephen A. Smith or something, just talking about my buddies. But David Rare calls me up. I answer the phone, and he knows I'm a Missouri boy, and he actually used to spend a lot of time up in Missouri. He knows the area. And he goes, hey, man, how about those Cardinals? And I guess the Cardinals were like doing really well in baseball. And I had no idea, like none. Because all I paid attention to was drag racing.
He ran out and got a Cardinals jersey, though, JT.
I did. I went straight. I went straight to Hibbets.
They're good. Oh man, I'm a fan. Like,
I'm a big fan. You got to be up and up on the current event.
Who's the best player? Oh, give me that one.
Ozzie Smith. Right? He was good.
Was he?
Yeah.
Ozzie.
Mark McGuire. I'm a big Mark McGuire.
But there you go. Ozzie put on a show for the fans all the time, right? He'd come
so
out,
did Mark McGuire.
When he knocked
the
back
steams off those
and
things.
Stuff like that, So I mean, yeah, he was putting on a show.
But my thing was I just didn't pay attention to anything but drag racing. And I sometimes think that we're all guilty of that, because that was like, it hit me for whatever reason that day. It was just like, oh shit, I need to like look around, because there are other things going on. And there's like a time and place for like staying super focused and keeping blinders on, I think. But in this like super competitive world we live in, when there's a gazillion different options, I think that we as a sport, especially while we're still trying to grow, like I feel like I say this a lot, but I mean it. Every time I go to a drag strip, every day, I feel like I'm walking on fertile soil. There is so much left for this sport to accomplish. And that is what gets me out of bed. Like, I think if I was operating in NASCAR, where it kind of feels like they've already reached their peak and they're kind of trying to maintain or fight for relevancy, that would be a very, very tough pill for me to swallow. But here in our sport, like, I just wake up every day with a chip on my shoulder, because I feel like there's something to prove. There's something left for us. And that's why, like, I'm going to the PBR event that's coming up like this week. It starts next week down here in Fort Worth, the PBR World Finals. And it's like, I want to go to those things because I'm sure that there's some idea that I will be able to steal or adopt.
Remember when I went to the rodeo and sent you guys, I may have had a few glasses of wine, but sent you guys those promo videos and stuff. I'm the same way. I go to every single sports venue, anything, and that's all I can think about. But like you said in the green room, drag racing's a little behind on social, on content, on these podcasts and shows and stuff. And that's why I get some shit of, being on this podcast and that podcast, but there's opportunity there and no one's really taken it. And why the hell not? We've got, like you said, it's very fertile.
Do you think that we get too greedy? We try to spread it out so much, like, oh, let's try to get fans here Thursday. Let's try to get fans here Friday. Let's try to get fan here, Saturday. Saturday's usually the busiest day, but let's not have the finals until Sunday. They've built up the whole day at the Kentucky Derby, but at the end of the day, someone's crowned a winner in front of the big crowd, in front of. I mean, that's kind of what you want too when you're winning is all the fans cheering. And do we water it down maybe a little bit too much? When we spread it out so much across the week. Well,
look at PDRA Pro Stars.
People are wore out. Let's face it. If they've been there for 2 days, they're like, man, it's hot out there.
I do think we expect a lot of our fans. I mean, I literally watch.
All that stuff comes from the participant side to me, or from the organization. And it's like, this is what we're going to do, and fans are going to like it or leave it. And so this is how this race is going to operate. and it's going to go on for 4 days. And if you love drag racing like we do, then you're going to show up for it. And I just think that it kind of goes back to like the hyper focused nature of racing, and especially drag racing. In my opinion, it's like there's no time for sports. There's no time for a Kentucky Derby. There's no time to be interested in what the Cardinals are doing, because if we got shit to do here in drag racing, it takes up so much time, so much effort. We know so many people, our own family members, that literally know nothing outside of the walls of that 1/8 mile or 1/4 mile. And when that's gone, or they're kind of forced to go put their focus on something else, it's like starting over, and they have no idea because they've devoted everything to drag racing. And I think that kind of carries on into what JT's saying.
I mean, there's some truth to it. There's no doubt. I mean, however, I also think that there are plenty of examples in like other sports. Like I think about the Waste Management Open, that big golf tournament in Phoenix. Like they've played it smart, where like
That's
early in
just
the
a
week,
drunk
it's
fest,
free.
from what I understand.
Well, it is a drunk fest, but
The
it's like they do like
management.
free Thursday and free Friday or whatever. And they get like Ford or somebody to pony up the money for tickets or whatever to like offset the cost to staff it and whatnot. Like they do. I think there are ways to do it, but I understand JT's point, because he's always been a big advocate. I think some of the best examples are like, Donald Long's races, like where
a shame.
The pace is plaqued on Saturday night, but we're not going to finish the race till Sunday.
Yeah, I think it's just a shame that these guys aren't, racing the finals in front of the crowd and everybody hyped up and ready to see it, and it just sucks for the
from the business side. I'll tell you that I think what I've seen is that, man, you want to sell a 3-day ticket, dog.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's you want to sell tickets for 3 days.
I get that. I get that, but I do think that maybe it just needs to end on the day that, whether you move it out.
PDRA this year, Tyler has made it very clear that they've restructured how they market everything. They used to say it's verbiage. Gates open at 8 a.m. Well, if you don't really know what's going on, you're thinking Saturday morning, I'm going to get my kids, go to the racetrack. Well, they don't run pros until 3 at all. And so you're losing that. So they've even changed the way that they advertise it and say, not using the words gate open. It's just pros start at 3, or we have pre-race.
And I like that.
At 2, and it's going to keep them there at that different chunk.
Yeah. So they're not going home before the
because those poor guys, even if they do, and they're working on packing the stands and stuff, but even if there are people there, like at Galot, the rain, but they leave at the semis, and then they've got to finish bracket bash and all this other happy stuff. And it's like you win in front of 2 people, and they're doing winner's circle while they're still running the race.
Right. Because there's so many classes, so many cars, so many classes. You got so many cars, you got to move down this track that you can't stop for a winner's circle. There's just,
well, let me ask you this.
So like, too much in. That's why it goes to Sunday.
We're a couple days away, or a couple of days removed from the Piedmont Dragway Big Dog Shootout. Mike was actually out there at Piedmont, North Carolina last Thursday night. And this deal's like legendary, been around for decades. And it's a quick 8 on a Thursday night. It's on a weeknight. And this deal basically starts Mike, 5 o'clock and is over by midnight. I mean, typically, ideally over.
Yeah, they do testing starting at like 1 or 2 o'clock, make a couple test hits. First round of qualifying is at 4 or 5. They only have 2 qualifying sessions, and it's right into the race. It's an 8-car field, so it goes quickly, 45 minutes between rounds. And the deal's, barring any wrecks or other problems, the deal's over by 11, usually at the latest.
That sounds amazing.
It's awesome. Yeah, it is. It's a great race, man. Tons of fun.
I'm surprised there's not more of those things happening in the country, though. Aren't you? Like, do you think that that's just a case of where, because this kind of all circles back around. I remember it's being said one time, like the most dangerous words in the English language, because that's how we've always done it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I do wonder because that format would work in a lot of places. I mean, there are a lot of places that have like a local contingent of badass door cars. You do something on a weeknight, you're not competing with all the regular sports programming that's happening in the area, whether it's college football or basketball, whatever's going on. Those weeknight events, I'm surprised we don't see more of that. Like that model that Piedmont has, I haven't really seen anybody try to replicate.
Like, wouldn't that be cool if that was the model for Saturday? Like you've ran it down to 8 cars or something, and you modeled your Saturday off of that for your pros. I mean, that would be pretty damn cool, because you're going to get to basically see the whole kit and caboodle in one night.
It's a very compact show, though. There's only 2 classes, 3 classes, maybe.
Yeah, you'd have to kill the other
big dog, and then the bracket classes or whatever. So
for that time slot,
or run them to fruition instead of doing 3 days of qualifying. And I'm speaking on what I know and what I follow, but getting everything ready like the NHRA does. You know, they round robin sportsman Thursday. We don't even touch it Friday morning, Friday night, but after we're done, so that they are at the semis come Sunday, and they're just that filler. And I think that PDRA Pro Stars is a good example of that, to where that crowd can make that happen, because I was there for that last year and it was absolutely incredible. Like, first off, I got to fly in the night before and leave the night after, which is love that. But the concerts in the middle,
Did
like,
you have to fly commercial?
I know I'm no help. Courtney, not Erica. I flew.
Sorry.
Yeah, wrong sister here. I'm the peasant of the family. But it was really cool because it was.
It's not too bad down here.
It ain't.
Yeah.
No. It was like 9 a.m. you start, and at first I'm like, God, this is going to be such a long day. But there was so much going on and off the track. You had old PJ North spitting on the mic and in the pits and stuff, and it was nice to just have it all done. And they showed that it could be successful because they had people there. It rained a little bit during the day, but they had people there for the concert, a little cross pollination, if you will, of different worlds. People were there for country concerts that had no idea what race cars were, and pink skirts up in the grandstands falling in love with it. So it was cool.
Man, it works exceptionally well down here at the Motorplex for the Texas Stampede of Speed and the NHRA Fall Nationals. Like, they've done a fantastic job of throwing something out there for everyone. However, they're like, that's a 7-day long deal. Like, I'm not even that involved. And by the time it's over, I want to sleep for a month, because you're just so it's kind of the opposite almost, because I feel like you kind of gotta, it's so funny how there are so many examples, I think, in life where it's hard to find the middle ground. You're either doing a week-long festival and you're expecting people to
one day
camp out, or you're doing this stuff in an evening. One of the other things I watched, this is a big weekend for sports, man. I watched the Miami Grand Prix, the Formula One race.
A lot of similarities there with the Kentucky Derby deal, the build-up.
Ton of celebrities there.
They did a
Holy
great.
shit.
Oh my goodness.
My God. I mean, Patrick Mahomes was there. I mean,
And he crushed it.
Much bigger than that.
He was at the Kentucky Derby,
or was
too.
it Paolo Banchero from the Magic? Could have been either one. Have you seen that deal? Paolo Banchero from the Magic, Rookie of the Year, went to Duke. Last year, the dude, what's his name? Martin Brundle, the little pit interviewer guy, walked up to
Don
Paolo,
O'Neill,
who was a rookie at the time, and called him Patrick Mahomes. We got Patrick Mahomes here.
No.
And it was this whole thing. And it's gone on for a year. Anyway, I thought you were more tied into it.
Well, he finally he went and apologized and
now.
kind of made it. He patched things up. But watching that deal unfold, it was cool to watch him walk down like pit row, and like he goes, Tom Cruise is over there, but I've been specifically instructed not to speak to him. It's like,
I want to get recruited.
Right? He's like, oh, there's Roger Federer and there's one of the Williams girls, but I don't think I can stand the rejection, so I'm going to keep walking. And you know what I mean? Funny. And it was so cool. But those celebrity appearances, man, I can't help but feel like we probably as a society don't really understand the significant, like how much that moves the needle. Like, you see all those people there, and next year you ain't missing it, right? Because you just want to be somehow, some way guilty by association. Like, you're never going to bump into Patrick Mahomes, but you want to be able to tell people that you were at the same event that he was. It's I think the NHRA has done a really good job of trying to get a little more of that type of stuff going on this year.
We've had some football players, some NASCAR stuff, and Josh is a big part of Josh Hatchett, from formerly known as DI, but he's been a huge part of that, because he, like the soccer girls, everything. I feel like there's a tremendous difference in that, and Evan and everybody in the in-venue, they're giving that a space, and they're giving activities for them to go be seen at and stuff too. And this year's a huge difference to me in that.
Well, Josh follows all this stuff. I think that it makes sense to me if you know Josh, because he knows like contracts, he knows TV numbers for all these sports, like he follows it. So I think in his role with NHRA, he's kind of taking it upon himself to help push that and bring in some mainstream sports stars.
It's working.
So kudos to him and NHRA.
Josh can send texts and write stuff into his phone without ever looking at it. He just sits there and talks to you as he's doing it, and it really freaks me out. It's really cool though, but I'm like,
good input, JT.
Right?
He's not a single
worthless information that you probably don't need to know, but I'm going to tell you anyway.
Well, you know how Nate does it. He has his phone about 3 inches from his eyes because he's basically blind.
like you get a hat with an arm on it, where it just sits there.
And then you just
Hold
text.
it.
And you just
I love watching Nate text. It's one of my favorite things to do. It's like, Nate, quick, text your mom or something. I just want to see you do it.
He looks over his glasses, doesn't he? Doesn't he do that?
Yeah. And real close.
Pull his glasses down and looks over.
Yeah.
Poor
It's
Nate.
like the font on Nate's phone is like 48 impact.
He
I'm
can't
pretty sure.
even defend himself right now.
I know.
I hate to change the subject, but I will for just a little bit. I just got Nate's wedding program. They sent me one in the mail, and it is awesome. So kudos. They made it look like the Drag Illustrated.
That was cool.
Kudos to
magazine.
whoever did that, man.
Yeah. I mean,
just fantastic work.
probably could have had a
that
better
you,
graphics
Mike?
designer on it, but
Probably could have had. Probably.
Banged most of that out in Canva.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just joking, Mike. Don't
But
you?
the $12.99 membership, the $12.99 a month one, not basic.
Yes, I'm a premium Canva user. I'm an
Oh.
advanced Canva user.
I'm a basic bitch over here,
Me too.
JT designs most of his stuff in Microsoft Paint
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the paintbrush.
with a paintbrush.
That-
No.
that's
my
out.
Splatter- splatter
my,
brush.
My monitor is a mess. No.
Splatter brush. Oh my gosh, that's a blast from the past.
Well,
But
it sucks
I-
though, because when you're in like Photoshop or something like that, and then you go over and try a different software, you're trying to figure out how to work like the other one. Basically,
Oh, it sucks.
If you-
I hate Canva. I can't hardly use it. Wes is a master of it.
I love it.
I can't do
I love
anything in
Canva.
Canva.
Watch
I
him
love
Uh,
a little
step
secret.
pretty
Everybody
fast there, didn't I?
at Flow, we always get these calls we go on that teach us how to make reels and blur them out, this and that. And I'm over here like Googling what app does this, and I cheat all the time.
Quick app.
Yep.
Yeah, me and you have had some pretty good apps over the years, Court.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, work harder, not smarter. If it's the same result, like I'm
I
not
know.
a videographer, man. I'm
Well, some of them you download the app and you put the stuff in, you're like, holy shit.
That's crazy.
It really does
It
this
is
good of a
pretty
job.
amazing, man.
Yeah.
It is pretty amazing.
Shout
Is
out to
it
InShot
Erica?
for my reels.
Shout out to InShot. What are you going to throw out the first pitch at any baseball games? I saw Tony Schumacher throw out the first pitch at the Chicago Cubs game last weekend, or
Yeah.
maybe just this past weekend. Is Erica doing any? She did Houston last year, didn't
We
she?
did
Yeah.
Houston, and we're trying to do again with Josh. Josh is getting the shout outs today. We're trying to do a little follow-up deal because both of them won the championship that year. Houston won World Series, and then Erica won the championship. And so every time that something like that lines up, it's kind of cool. So we just had, and I don't know if the press release has gone out, but I'm going to say it. We pulled off to be Steve Torrance got the keys to the city for Kilgore,
ask about
Texas.
this,
And
but I
so
didn't know if it was
Erica,
public.
y'all know Erica. Erica's like, I want keys to a city. Like, why don't I have keys
Why do I
to
have
a
my
city?
freaking
I have
keys?
5 world championships. So we texted Josh and worked on it. And we actually got the proclamation from the mayor of Houston the other day that we didn't get keys because Houston's a lot bigger
You
than
got the keys
Kilgore.
to Crest Haven Trailer Park.
Yeah, exactly. To Baytown, Texas. No, but there's Erica Ender's Day is April 30th because her competition number was 430 growing up. So we just signed it on 430 of last year. And so every year is going to be an Erica Ender's Day. And I think we're going to try and loop something in with like the Dash, the Astros, and Erica and kind of do something
cool.
cool there. So that's
Yeah.
pretty sweet. Like,
Dude, that's
awesome.
really cool.
it is
Every
cool.
day.
And little sister, I'm a little, it's cool, but what the?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, trust me, it won't be long. In Granbury, Texas, there's going to be a Courtney
Yeah,
Enders Day.
You got
Hey,
Facebook.
Courtney,
You got
your day
Facebook. You
is
can just-
April 31st.
Thank you.
I was going
I
to
thought
say,
you
you
were
got
gonna
Facebook.
say-
You could just make up your own day. That's what
I thought he was
everybody
going to
does,
say
I
April
think.
20th.
Every
No,
time
you can have that one too.
April 20th.
Oh my gosh.
Vaping queen.
So let's touch base on this. I don't know if anybody went or was paying attention, but this is a fun thing to talk about, just like how well attended drag races have been in 2023. I don't know what's like if there's something in the water, but it really is amazing. Like a couple of things that happened this past weekend is like we had streetcar bragging rights going on out at the House of Hooks, Carolina Dragway in Aiken, South Carolina. Big crowd, extremely well attended. Import Face Off. I mean, this isn't a name that's like you regularly talked about in drag racing circles. I mean, hardcores know about it. People in the promotion or track operator business probably know about it. But Import Face Off has been around for like a decade, and it was built on the back of like the Fast and Furious Sport Compact movement. They like sold out New England Dragway this past weekend for Import Face Off. I mean, for anybody that thinks that type of racing or that type of car culture has waned at all, I think you may need to investigate this a little bit. But then we also had Cletus and Cars at Indianapolis Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park in Brownsburg, Indiana, a 2-day event that was coupled with a really cool collaboration between Cletus and Cars and the NHRA Division 3, as well as he had his, whatever, it's the Cletus 800, their circle track deal with all the Crown Vics at the oval track on Sunday. And man, I saw a slew of photos from this place, 400 race cars, and it was packed to the gills. I mean, I don't know that we can say enough positive about, I mean, how cool is it for top alcohol and top alcohol dragster and top alcohol funny car at a divisional race to get to race in front of packed grandstands? They had a match race between Cletus's Mullet El Camino streetcar and a top alcohol dragster. Tony Stewart goes on to win the deal. There's a burnout competition. I mean, are we seeing, I mean, we were just talking about all the changes that we want to see in the sport and the things that we think we could learn from, but I mean, is Cletus already there? I mean, I think he might be.
Yeah. I mean, he's a celebrity in the spot, I think, and needle mover for sure. And it's
he
stuck with it, and he's invested a lot back into it. Like buying that track down there, and revamping everything, and buying all these different cars. And I mean, he's put a lot into it, and the young crowd. He pulls a lot of the young crowd, which is great for drag racing.
I couldn't believe those pictures. Like I was confused. Leah posted something like walking up the grandstands, and I'm like, wait, I thought Tony was racing at the divisional, and I literally had to go check the schedule of if I missed when the division race was. But that just goes to show, remember back in the day, you guys, not you, JT, because you don't go to drag races, but back in the day, whenever like we'd go to the Houston National, and there'd be BMX guys out there ripping off of the whatever the heck they call those things that they do while we had oil downs and stuff. And I mean, and then it kind of digressed into the Traxxas cars doing stuff, but like putting on a show while you're doing this. Drag racing is, in the flow world, the biggest struggle that I have is trying to fill downtime, truck prep time, oil downtime, crash time, and put the race aside, even if that was just the exhibition stuff with the donuts and the wheelies and the burnouts and stuff. Like, proof is in the pudding. People want to watch stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they had a car show, drag race. I mean, yeah, they had a car show, drag racing. They had a burnout competition. And this burnout deal has really taken on a life of its own. I mean, this has been around for a long time in Australia. They call it a skid, and they have these legit burnout competitions, and people literally come from far and wide to see these guys cut donuts. And for me, I'm almost blown away that it's taken this long for it to gain any traction. That's an interesting pun, or lack thereof here in the States. But I think it took somebody like Cletus, somebody that's got like big influence, has a huge audience, a super dedicated following, to say like put his stamp of approval on it. Because we're going to see more and more and more shops start to build cars specifically for that shit. There's no doubt in my mind. When you get a new set of tires, you're like, I can't wait to go burn the hell out of these. I mean, there are people building purpose-built cars.
Lyle won one, didn't he?
Yeah, Lyle won one in Charlotte. I think it was out maybe at the Charlotte Motor Speed. I can't remember where that one was, but I just think it's interesting that Cletus has got what he has going on. The thing I think I want to give kudos to is shout out to NHRA and everybody involved. I've heard through the grapevine that they basically told him that we won't let you rent the track if you don't let us run a division race in conjunction with it. Like they, I may be talking out of turn here, but they kind of leaned on him, saying like, hey, we'll happily rent you the track or whatever, but we need to do this in conjunction. And it's nice to know that the NHRA is thinking outside of the box, because that's not something that they're necessarily associated with. I mean, that's very surprising to me, but a huge home run.
Well, they've got some fresh thinkers in there. We sat down and talked to several at Charlotte, and they've got their eyes and ears open and are watching what's going on in the sport. And I think obviously Cletus is sort of the primary needle mover in the stuff we're talking about, but you've got to have a multifaceted event, and it's got to be entertaining. I feel like the younger people, everybody that was there knew they were going to have an entertaining, fun day. It wasn't going to be like we were talking about, a 4-day grind with only drag racing. There's going to be all this different stuff going on, something for everybody. And that's how you've got to use these facilities and use this time. So you've got, like you said, the divisional race going on, but there were people that were there that probably had no idea that an NHRA divisional race was happening. And on the other end, maybe someone didn't know who Cletus was, and they were there for the divisional, and now they see this. So it's like, you've got to mix those things together. And we see The Stampede of Speed, I think, is a great example of that as well. Doing all these different things throughout the week. That's what you have to do today. You can't just have a drag race.
They did it at Charlotte a few years ago, didn't they? They had like some drifting stuff going on.
They did, yeah, in the
cool.
pits. Yep.
I actually thought that was really well received. Like they were, I mean, every time there was downtime, because I remember rolling up to park in that media lot, which is, you know, shout out to ZMAX Dragway. They like, that's the only track in the country that like really seems to like make the media a priority. So thank you, Bruton Smith, Marcus Smith, everybody. Because holy moly, that's convenient. But I was parking my car and you hear like squalling tires and see smoke. And I'm like, dude, they don't even run cars until whatever. I was getting there early. I was proud of myself. And then I go bebopping through the pits and like, holy shit, they've got like a drift exhibition set up over here. I do think that adopting more of that festival vibe, because there's certain parts of drag racing that we're not going to be able to change. Like this deal is a little bit set in our ways, admittedly, and this has been the format for 70 years. I mean, these are day-long, multi-day events, and it is like if we're going to try to get an entire drag race over, it's just at a scale that's very hard to do. You know, so you have to find other ways to do it, and that's entertain people all day long. You know,
and you have to keep them entertained because people's people today are so busy. You know, and both parents are working, and you know, kids. I mean,
soccer practice.
Yeah, just the sports alone for kids anymore. You know, now they're on traveling teams. They're having probably have 3 or 4 times as many practices as we had.
JT
at that age.
Loving his kids being in sports and on the show.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I love that they picked up soccer all of a sudden too. You know, that's great. But I'm just saying. And then, you know, if somebody has like 2 seconds free, they're looking at their phone, they're on Facebook, they're flipping through Instagram or whatever. Like people are wired anymore to want to be entertained 24/7. Like
or be entertained while you're being entertained. Right. I saw this deal like on Instagram. It's like it says Netflix needs a category that's called easy to follow while I look at my phone the entire time.
Yeah.
Because people turn on Netflix. Oh, I need to watch something on Netflix. And then you're on your phone. I mean, there's multiple things going on. And kind of that same point, Wes, do you remember the drifting thing that you're talking about? I don't know who we heard from. Maybe it was someone from the track or from NHRA talked about, yeah, that deal kind of worked a little too well because we ended up with so many fans, especially kids, younger fans, piled around that deal doing the drifting while like, you know,
I wonder why they never did that again. That checks out.
It's exactly why, because it actually was like too successful, and everybody ended up watching that deal instead of watching like, you know, the stuff that they're supposed to be there watching. It cannibalized the NHRA show a little bit. So there's definitely
like there's a learning. Like what they should have done is just learned from that and said like, hey, we're gonna have to. It's a double-edged sword, and you know what? They're probably not going to watch Super Comp if they can watch that. So be it.
But time it out.
But time it, yeah, and shut it off whenever top alcohol is running.
It just was going all day, 24/7.
I think it reminds me of like a music festival. I think that some of the most, I mean, and this is, dude, some of the most successful events in the world are music festivals, right? And now, granted, music is this like universal language that brings everybody together, and it's, you know, it's. I'm not trying to make like a direct comparison to music and motorsports. However, it's like a main stage and stage B and stage C and stage, you know what I mean? Like that's how all those events work, is that you've got your main stage that Metallica is going to play on, but then you have all these up and coming acts playing on these smaller stages. And I mean, that's just, I do think, but you don't have a small act playing on top of Metallica. You know what I mean? You have to coordinate all of it. So I think that if they're just given a little bit of time, one thing that, I mean, we all struggle with this, like you do something once and it doesn't work out exactly perfect and you punt. And it's like, now some of this stuff you've got to stay the course with. I had a conversation yesterday with someone about, with a guy talking about the World Series of Pro Mod and like what our plan for the future was and how we felt the first year went. And I told them that like we learned a lot. Year one, we really treat this event like our first time doing it. Now, granted, we've done events in the past, but this was in this incarnation or whatever, down partnered with Bradenton Motorsports Park. This was basically our first at bat. And I feel like year one is when you provide proof of concept, you show people what you can do. Year two is really about consistency and proving that you can do it at that level again. You can bring that level of enthusiasm, you can bring that level of excitement, you can improve slightly, but it's really about consistency. And it's year 3, 4, 5 when you really start to like plant your flag on the moon and show the world what you're capable of. But a lot of times people give up too soon. I think there's like a universal lack of patience in like maybe all of society, but specifically in our sport, where it's like, dude, this shit takes a little bit of time. I mean, anytime I have someone hit me up about, oh, we should do this or we should do that, the first thing I ask is like, do you really have the patience? Because it is not actually one of our sponsors, and I'm drawing blank on his name, Doug Winter's sponsor, the Steinar guy.
Steinar.
I don't know if you remember his name. Craig actually wrote a book.
Craig
Nice.
Yeah, great job, man. Craig wrote a book that I recently read.
Me and JT hung out with Craig at the first World Door Slammer Nationals
in Orlando. I think it was a rough night for y'all, right?
Yeah, slightly. Every night's a rough night when you're hanging with JT.
But he wrote a book and he said, if you get rich quick, you're probably going to jail.
The big guy.
Yeah. And you know what? That's the title of the book. If you get rich quick, you're probably going to jail. And you know what? There's a lot of truth to that, because I think about it even with Drag Illustrated. We've been doing this for almost 20 years. I mean, we launched Drag Illustrated in October of 2005. And I bump into some of these content creators and some of these up and coming podcasters or YouTubers or magazine guys or whatever. And they're a year in and they're ready to quit. You know what I mean? They're 3 years in and they're getting disappointed. And it's like, hey, man, this takes a long, long time. And I think that patience is really what is universally lacked. Like that giving up on drifting, that could have been, I'm pissed, perma pissed at drifting. They stole our shtick. Like drag racing does burnouts. You guys stole our shtick, right? I mean, I'm perma pissed at all drifting people because they're stealing our shine. All of them. I don't, all from top down, don't like any of them. They stole our shtick. But my point is, like, we shouldn't have punted on that so quick. Like, it worked well. And then, like just because it wasn't perfect, I'm just saying we can use them. Use them up.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's fine.
You know,
Yes,
like, hey, man, if we can bring some fresh eyeballs and kind of keep people excited doing burnouts at the drag strip, I mean, that's what the drag strip's for. What are we doing? But we gave up too quick. Like, well, it was kind of taken away. It was cannibalizing, like Mike said, our crowd for the drag races. So let's just scratch
how
it.
about this part? How about this part too?
This for a while.
They bought the ticket. They're buying the beer. They're buying the funnel cake.
Yeah. What about the shorten the burnout? Shorten that bad boy up. Barely. I want you to just spin these tires one time in this water. I don't even want to see any smoke come off of them. That's what we're doing in drag racing in a lot of these classes today. And that's a sort of a, you know, back to what we were saying, the smoke, the burnout, part of what makes drag racing, we've taken that away. We've like over optimized the performance of the cars and what we figured out what works and what doesn't. You used to think I've got to do a crazy ass burnout. We got to pop a gigantic wheelie. This thing's got to be all over the track, all this stuff to get this car down the track, to get traction. And now we do none of that. So, you know, we only have ourselves.
Big burnouts haven't really gone away in door slammer racing because, and we have to like, you know, we have to hang on to this because there's been a handful of times when I've seen like a pro stock car, an NHRA, do like a really short or a bad burnout or not do a burnout at all. Right. And then still will go up there and run. And I'm like, hey, sons of bitches, don't you get any ideas? You know what I mean? Don't you be getting any ideas that you can make a run without doing a burnout, you know, because I don't care if it's necessary or not. We mustn't. I mean, we stopped setting the cars on fire during the we gave up on fire burnouts, which is disappointing, but we cannot give up on just regular tire smoke burnouts.
Whenever they do the Friday night stuff and Jason Logan's up there and they have like walkout songs for the fuel guys and the funny car guys, well, knowing me, they weren't doing it for Pro Stock. So I went up there. I'm like, what do we have to do? You know, I can gather everybody's songs. Like, what's the deal? And their response was the fact that the time that they were doing these songs for the fuel guys was, you know, when they were plugging them in, when they were spitting nitro in there, when they were getting ready to go do the burnout, because our time that's wasted, they said, comes from burnout to wheelie bar set and go. And they just couldn't feel like they could fill it then. And so as soon as they said that, I'm like, oh, well, we're not shortening up the burnouts. We're not doing that. That's door slammer racing right there. So we nixed the music idea.
What would be your walkout song, Courtney?
I don't race. I am Courtney for the second time today. I'm just kidding.
I know I said, what would be your walkout song? I mean, like everybody has their song, like be a walkout song. I ask people that all the time.
JC, what's yours then?
I've got a bunch of them.
I really like the one.
I don't know.
I would probably do
the one that was. It's kind of new. It's like Girls As Play As Two.
Oh yeah, that is
like
actually
that
a good
one.
song.
But we did on the Shake and Bake show. They'd said something about it, and like 500 people wrote in and said "Crazy Bitch" was mine. So I guess "Crazy Bitch" was mine.
Oh,
so
Buck Cherry.
So so NHRA basically
Ain't
said
no sunshine in it. That would be a DMX.
Yeah.
DMX. Or it'd be like, "Arf, arf." You know, like we would do Rough Riders, right? You know,
mine like changes all the time.
Yeah,
Regulators.
I feel like NHRA picks out those songs for some of these drivers. Like
Some
when they come out
do.
there, I'm like,
But I will say
pick this song.
they give the opportunity when it does happen, and when before COVID, when they did find a place to do it for the last pair of Pro Stock, like I had to have Jason a song an hour before because of it. But God, some of these older guys that were like,
I don't care. Pick a song for me. I can see that happening.
Yeah,
you can't let them pick some.
But they would come. They would come forward with some that were just awful, like a 1972 ballad.
And this is where I think, as the whole sport, because here I'm gonna name names here, and I'm not like frustrated, but just as an example.
Oh shit.
Yeah, here we go. I think it's really easy, and we get this right here on this show, that it seems like there's hardly a week that goes by we don't see somebody in the comments say something like, "Oh, we're going to bash on NHRA," you know, and we're not. We're providing feedback. We're having a conversation. We're talking about drag racing is what we do. But you know what? You know who's also guilty in this whole like lack of promotional effort, or the racers themselves, because there are so many of these racers that will not play ball. Like, just refuse to entertain the notion. I mean, I can't count the number of times we've had guys like turn down interview opportunities, or be too busy to do an interview, or don't have time. And it's like, okay, but this is the same group of people.
Names. You said you're going to name names.
It's coming. It's coming, you know, but guys, you can't have it both ways. You know what I mean? We can't be bent out of shape that we don't have more sponsors, we don't have more fans, or we're not selling more merch, or look at all the merch those Street Outlaw guys are selling. Yeah, no shit. They put in the work. They're playing the game. They're willing participants. And the naming names is just, I was disappointed this past weekend. I was literally looking for quotes yesterday from NHRA top alcohol dragster and top alcohol funny car racers. I was thinking, surely somebody that was racing at the Division III race at Cletus and Cars had something gracious to say about this huge crowd that showed up to watch them race. Fucking zero. None. What? Yeah, I literally looked and I went down the qualifying list and searched all these people up on social, right? So I'm like, okay, who's number one qualifier? All right, type them into Facebook. Nothing. No posts. Nothing. Number two qualifier. Type them into Facebook. No posts. Nothing. I mean, there was like a handful, like lost in E1, but like no mention. Robbie Massey, a good buddy of mine from Ankeny, Iowa, known him since he was literally like 5 years old, a junior dragster racer. He ran top alcohol funny car there. He made a post. It was like cool environment. And I'm like, he was the only person that I saw that even acknowledged the fact this is probably the biggest crowd that has ever been assembled for a divisional race in history. Ever. And I'm going, but it just kind of supports my argument here that it's like, guys, it's going to take all of us. You know what I mean? Because we can all complain and bag on the NHRA and bag on whomever, the track owner or the promoter. It's going to take all of us. I said that to our Pro Mod group with the World Series of Pro Mod. Like, hey, man, I'm all for I love the attention. It's fantastic. And I love everybody heaping praise on me, but it's not going to be just me. It's going to take all of us. And they delivered. I mean, like, still to this day, our racers from the World Series of Pro Mod are still promoting our event for us. I mean, they're still talking about it. They're still posting on social. There's still anything they can do. And that's a group of people that get it. You know, and
anytime I walked into their pit, they were more than willing. And I know it's not that way everywhere, but you made it very clear that that's what you had to do. I invited you here. This is my playground, and let's amp it up. And
everybody, and it's tough, but there are people that probably deserve to get invited to that race that didn't, because they weren't willing to play ball, you know, and I need people that will be willing to play ball. I'm going to invite, you know, a guy that, you know, maybe is a fringe dude or someone who, like Scott Palmer. I mean, I don't think he'll be in his car. I mean, he's a little behind the curve, you know, he's just kind of getting back into pro modified. He's got a clutch car. He's doing it as hard as the way possible. And that's why we all love him, but he is so willing to play the game. I mean, I can't imagine how many tickets Scott Palmer personally sold for the World Series of Pro Mod by posting things on social media, telling people to come, connecting people with me.
Tell how much it meant. Telling people how much it meant to him, to actually be invited to it. And he's got a huge following anyway, because he's like the people's champion, right?
He really is, man.
And I think we saw guys that we didn't expect kind of step out of their shell too, especially on the TV show.
Yeah.
When that mic goes in their face, the camera goes in their face, the lights come on.
They're the stars now. They've never been the star of the show before.
Like guys that are more on the quiet side, like Randy Weatherford comes to mind. And he was great on the TV show. And he's a guy you don't hear from very much. Of course, you got like Jason Harris and some others that you performed
I
as
thought
expected.
Jason Harris and I thought J.R. Gray did a really good job on it.
JR did a great job. Spencer did great.
Spencer did awesome. Yeah.
Even
Marcus
Halsey
Burt
was starting to talk a lot.
Yeah. And so and like you said, Courtney, they knew that going in. They knew that this was going to be different. This was part of it. More so, maybe it's just a mindset thing. Maybe they were prepared for that and knew that was going to be part of it. But do you run into that a lot? Like I'm always interested to hear like how frequent is that for you to just get told, no, not right now, or I'm too busy?
So much more than you would think. And then it's once we're during the week, whether it's before or after the race, Courtney, can you post this for us? Courtney, can you write this for us? And it's like, yeah, but you kicked me out of your pit 10 times. And it's not always bad. Like I get it. I go scope it out and check the temperature of the room, if you will. And if they're tearing something apart, whatever. But I mean, I've straight up had guys tell me, I don't like the camera. No, I'm good. And then Monday morning they hit me up like, hey, do you have any pictures of me or any of this of me? And it's like, no, I don't.
Think how
much you told me to go.
Think how much easier it is for you than it is for us.
Yeah,
like,
that's fair.
Yeah. Courtney, come over here. No, JT, you can stay over there. Yeah.
I also don't really take no. I'm like, Halsey's so funny and he's great. He does whatever, but he's shy. And his banquet speech at PDRA last year, I think, was 13.4 seconds, which was the longest he's ever done. But he's so funny. He sees me coming and he acts like he's gonna run, and I'm like, if you don't want to do an interview, like stop winning everything, dude.
It is and I think that like I don't want it to come across like any of us here are scolding anyone, but we're asking for help, because I think all of us recognize, like circling back around to the beginning of this conversation, is that the most exciting thing for me in 2023 when it comes to drag racing is that there is so much left to do. Like I know in my heart that this is the great American motorsport. I look at Formula One, NASCAR, even the Kentucky Derby. What is like the most exciting thing that could happen at any of those aforementioned events? A drag race breaking out. Two horses side by side coming across the finish line. Two NASCARs, stock cars coming out of the final turn side by side. A drag race to the checker. Like that is the best possible scenario in every other sport. In every other racing sport.
The dark horse was coming in, literally the dark horse, but also the dark horse metaphoric. He was coming in hot. And I remember saying out loud, like, we got a drag race, boys. And like, I hear it all the time and I literally get goosebumps. The hair stands up on my arms because I'm like, how in the world can a sport that has that week in and week out, right? We have that every Saturday, every Sunday. We got a drag race breaking out. Yep.
All these other sports are praying that it happens, hoping that it happens. And we have it every weekend. Yet collectively, we're kind of, hanging back. I was going to say some other stuff, but in this like super politically correct world, I didn't know which one of them would get me in trouble. But like, we're playing from behind as a sport. And I think that it's going to take the reminder, the lesson or whatever that I want people to take away from this is not that anybody's doing anything wrong. It's just that if we want to get this sport where it rightfully belongs, I truly believe this is the great American motorsport. It's not going to be just NHRA. It's not going to be Fox. It's not going to be just Drag Illustrated or whatever, or just the Shake and Bake show. I mean, it's all of these things help, but it's going to take all of these people swimming in the same direction, recognizing that like, hey, there's an opportunity here. Car culture's on the rise. I mean, you can't watch TV without watching somebody spinning a wrench. I mean, it's incredible.
Some of this is that they're humble. And they're so humble and that they, oh, no, I don't want to do that. But you're going to have to treat it like a big deal if you want it to be a big deal.
Play into it. It's a role. It's a switch. I say it constantly when I get home. Like my switch has been on. I have imposter syndrome times 1,000 with what I'm doing now, going from behind the scenes to what it is. But it's like you said, I mean, you got to step up and almost fake it till you make it. And if the space is there, like, let's put on a show.
100%. You basically have to do these things as if the world is watching. It may be 8 people, right? But you have to you have to act as if you have to, and otherwise it never will be the case, you know? And I mean, so many of these things, I mean, I have a guy that always tells me, like, be careful of what I write on a legal pad, because like it'll happen. You know what I mean? Like, if you do this stuff enough and you put in the effort enough and you, like I said, you make those scribbles and notes and chicken scratch enough,
You got a genie or something?
things start to happen, man, you know? And it's just, it's true. I mean, but you got to act as if. You got to just be putting in, going through the motions, putting in those, you know, whatever reps and sets, like they say.
My dad always told me to dress for the job you want. I think about that 100 times a day whenever I'm like get nervous when that red light comes on the camera. Dress for the job you want. Act for the job you want.
I don't think there have been truer words ever spoken. Truly, I mean, that is so important, and that's what I see. The people that are having success in our sport and really breaking through are the people that are leaning into it. Like Garrett Mitchell, Cletus McFarland. I don't think he ever thought, when he threw that goofy accent on and did that one video for 1320 video, that this would be something that would turn him into a multimillionaire, right? Yeah. And a legit celebrity. But he's leaned into it. Look at all the Street Outlaw, No Prep Kings guys. I mean, all of the ones that have really had success are the guys that are going, you know what? I'm all in. I'm doing it. Like, I'm going to be a TV personality. I'm going to do the live interviews. I'm going to talk to the camera. I'm going to post on social. I'm going to stand and sign autographs. I'm going to do all those things. And it seems only just that they're the ones that reap the reward, right? I mean,
yeah, because they put the bad stuff on there too. You know, a lot of times.
You have to be willing to have that bad stuff on there.
Yeah,
that's I think
you
a big thing.
Handle that to reap the rewards of the good stuff eventually. So
yeah,
it ain't easy. Right?
We talk about drag racers all the time. No, I don't want to do any social media really until I've won a couple championships, set a couple records maybe, and then I'll start, you know, getting my stuff out there. I'm not going to put any of this, you know, me blowing shit up or crashing or whatever but that stuff. Yeah, the struggle. And we talk about that a lot. But Courtney, let's talk a little bit about Flo. You guys are kind of branching out to me a little bit, doing this stuff like the Australia deal this past weekend, and then you just put it on our radar here. Something you guys are doing with the big rig drag racing scene.
Wes has been a big fan of this for a long time, hasn't he?
We actually did feature some big rigs. Yeah, 2 big rigs. Dude, it was like one of our earliest issues of the magazine. Do you remember that, Wes? Wasn't it like on a street in Detroit or something like that, where they were having this?
I think it might have been in Canada.
Oh yeah, Canada.
That's right. Yeah, most of it comes from there.
Yeah. So, like, what's your involvement been in that? In sort of getting the Flo universe focused on some of these other aspects of racing and drag racing in particular.
It's pretty cool because we've got something that I learned with Flo is, you know, like at Drag Illustrated and the little things we do in drag racing, it's usually just one group and we tackle everything. Things are very structured and very departmentalized there. And the team that goes out and finds these races and decides what we're doing, you guys are familiar with Kendra Jacobs and Chris McKee. They go exploring and they just search the web and they talk to people and they go just wild on the boundaries and then come to us. I'm a subject matter expert which is terrifying, but that's what they call me at Flo. And kind of get our feedback. I know it's really scary. Get our feedback on, you know, would this work with our market? That kind of thing. And so we get a lot of things and we're like, no, I don't think that that's really worth the proof in the pudding, anything like that. But they came to us with the Australian Top Fuel market. One day, only 2 events that we're doing the final day, but Top Fuel was something that's never been on Flo before. When I first came to Flo, it was like, we want to get Top Fuel, we want to get Funny Car, Pro Mod, Pro Stock, like those 4 top classes. And they have all their weird verbiage from dirt, late model and stuff. And it's funny to hear the comparisons, but
amen.
Yeah, they're like, what's the main heats and this and that? I'm like, well, I don't know, but these are the top 4 classes at the NHRA. And so they worked really hard to get this. And with global rights, we couldn't stream it in Australia, like all this nonsense that I didn't have anything to do with. But the fact that we were putting a Top Fuel car on Flo for the very first time over in Australia over the weekend, and then Larry Dixon winning, which was really cool because that's just something that Flo fans and people in the United States that follow drag racing just gravitate towards. So venturing out and investing in things like this that we don't know if people are going to subscribe to watch, but trying to enlighten the Flo audience on this importance of it. And then Kendra came to me a few months ago about the big rig stuff, and I've seen it, heard of it. I know it's really big on YouTube, but much like you said earlier, Wes, like I have tunnel vision. I have drag racing tunnel vision to the fullest, and I can only have the bandwidth for what I can have the bandwidth for. And so we start doing all this research, and there's Cletus level YouTube volume. There's millions and millions of views and subscribers that follow this stuff. So we've got our first big rig race coming up. I think it's next weekend. It's the Great Lakes Big Rig Challenge. And so I reached out to you guys of how we can introduce the drag racing market to this and kind of compare and contrast. It's a little bit similar, but a lot different. And I think that it falls into our market and doesn't have to live on its own. And so, so I think it'll be really cool because I know nothing about it and I'm going to be learning about it, but big smoke, big nonsense, big drag racing.
Man, I think that I
awesome.
dig it. I dig it, man. But it again, I just, sometimes I get so frustrated because dude, drag racing is so big. Like those drag racing anything. There's so many different kinds. It's incredible. RC cars, it's like a whole thing popping off crazy. The big rig stuff. I mean, even electric cars, they're having events specifically for electric cars. The drag racing, this is such an enormous sport that I think sometimes it's hard for us really to wrap our heads around it. I got to tell you though, it was exciting to see Larry Dixon win a Top Fuel.
It was cool.
I miss seeing his name as like as part of the headlines and the newsreels.
Well, and then Will Smith is partnering up with him and running Chicago.
Yeah.
So he's making his appearances recently.
I just looked this up, 6.7 million views from this race last year on YouTube. And it's just like truckers with shipping containers on the back, just like we said with the Kentucky Derby, drag racing. Like, I can't believe I've never been into this. You got a guy starting with flags. It's freaking crazy. So I appreciate you guys helping and leaning in.
Well, but it shows you that it doesn't have to be complicated.
No,
right? I mean, and that's one of our, like, as a sport, drag racing, that's like one of our probably biggest, like perhaps our most significant Achilles heel is that we are going to find a way to make this shit complicated.
Oh my God.
As complicated as possible. We're going to prep the track for 4 hours. We're going to scrape it after that because it's not right.
Index classes.
Yeah, it's, I had an interesting conversation with NHRA that I thought was cool. And with a couple of dudes at NHRA, and they were talking about how they love, obviously I think what I had brought up, which shout out to Craig Cook. There's a great article on dragillustrated.com kind of discussing streetcar takeovers, 10 years of success, man. This is a deal.
Isn't that
kind
crazy?
of
10 years already.
It's unbelievable, dude. This deal kind of birthed out of the Kansas City, Missouri street racing scene, really, and has now become something of a nationwide drag racing phenomenon. I mean, they sell out at tech cards. They pack places full of fans. They do a lot of the things that we just talked about. They got a party one night and a dyno competition. They got a car show, and there's all these things happen. There's influencers there. They're doing a lot of things right. But the guys at NHRA, and it's cool that they're this tuned in. They said, well, we see that the streetcar takeover as like the highest level, really, of street enthusiasts. Like that's the John Forces of the streetcar movement. And they said that one of the things that is really kind of on their mind is how can we go after the sportsman or the grassroots streetcar guy that maybe will never go to a drag race. I mean, they actually said to me, we feel as an organization, we have to find out how to have a drag race in like downtown Fort Worth. Like not at a track or at these abandoned airfields or at these, some of these places where, okay, we're going to bring in some of those water barriers, the movable barriers. And now granted, you would have to have a performance limitation on it. But the example that they gave was Roadkill Nights in Detroit on Woodward Avenue, when they literally closed down a city street that's got a freaking stoplight swinging by a wire above the road. They close it down. They put up all the barriers. Dodge is heavily involved. I think Dodge actually drives the bus on the whole deal. And like they said, is it like perfectly safe? Probably not necessarily, but that's the type of thing that it's the lowest possible barrier to entry. You don't feel like you need a trailer. You don't need a truck and a rig and tools. And I mean, it's literally people driving their cars there, racing a little bit, having some fun, and then driving those exact same cars home. And that's how they feel they can help grow the sport, is that hopefully those kids or those people, maybe not even kids, would ultimately graduate up into Streetcar Takeover or graduate up into PDRA from Streetcar Takeover. And I find that kind of interesting because that really does seem like the move is to find ways to partner with. I mean, Street Outlaws is doing it, right? They're filming, they're getting permits to run these races from cities outside of Vegas or outside of these small towns in Texas.
Yep.
So clearly it can be done.
I mean, F1's taking over the strip.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, clearly it can be done. It's very interesting.
Have you seen how much those packages are for the F1 deal?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
But you talk about a C and B scene deal.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, tens of thousands of dollars for some of these packages.
Yes.
Man.
Christian Horner did an interview at the Miami GP and said that the Las Vegas GP is going to be the biggest event in the history of motorsports, the biggest, most well-promoted, most heavily hyped, probably most expensive to attend event in motorsports history. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think I sent you. Did Weston I send you something the other day? Yeah, I did.
It's in November, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And these
I
packages.
told Richard he should buy me a ticket for my birthday. It's on my birthday, and he basically told me to F off.
The Lucky Eights experience, only $888,000. So
come on,
but
JP.
that breaks down to $222,000 a day. So it doesn't seem that bad,
Bargain.
right? I mean,
It seems doable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you could get a couple of people to go in on it, right?
Yeah.
You just share the single ticket. Yeah. No, but again, is that not inspiring? I mean, it is to me. Like I think about the money that's being spent to like renovate various parts of Las Vegas, which is like a pretty badass city. Like it doesn't seem like it's struggling right now. You know, they're like redoing
shut
shit.
it down. Like that's a
to
big
shut
deal.
it down to put on a race. I don't know, man. There's a lot of really exciting things happening. And I think it's going to, I do feel like, again, these big crowds that we're seeing to start the season, Gainesville sellout, Phoenix sellout. And I know there's sad stories out there. Phoenix potentially closing, Houston going away. Like don't get me wrong. There are sad stories out there, but man, it feels like motorsports in general.
But do you feel like that may have to do with almost the urgency of the success of it is like, you know, kind of, I think JT, one of y'all said this on a show a few weeks back and it kind of triggered it with me is like, when you think something's limited or exclusive or going away, you want to just like rip on. And Phoenix, you know, Phoenix always had a great crowd, but that place was out of control. Friday at noon, you couldn't move in that place. And is it because they promoted it as the last race, you know? And so maybe it's almost like,
we put it off this many years. We better go see it before it's gone. Right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but it's like every furniture store on the planet that's like perpetually having a going out of business sale, right? You know what I mean? It's like going out of business, come get it, you know? And I think, I mean, to me, the problem is that it's so hard. It gets to a point that like becomes inauthentic. Like that's real scarcity. Like you better come to this deal because they're turning it into a shopping mall next year. So you better come. And I do think that certainly helps, but it's how can you generate that repeatedly, you know, it is hard. I do think less is more in some regards. I'm a proponent of less NHRA races. I think every one of them would be better attended. I think they'd be better. I think you'd have more people attempting to compete for a championship or chase points, however you want to phrase it, if there were less of them. And I know those are like really tough decisions to make and a lot of heartache and like really, you know, confrontational moments. But I think we'll actually see like losing Denver, absolute bummer. I don't know that there's a track on the tour that hits hard. Let's ask that. Is there a facility in drag racing amongst the group that has like people have more of like an emotional attachment to or like fond memories of more so than Bandimere Speedway? Aside
from your own home track, you know what I mean? But everybody knows the drag strip carved on the side of the mountain. Shit, you can go to a Zach Brown band concert at Red Rocks. We would start the day by going to yoga with the girls in the morning in Red Rock, go take a hike. Like there's nothing like that place.
Yeah, it's so awesome.
It really is. I mean, I don't think there's another facility.
I've ever been to.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they're like, God, there's some cool ones, you know, Pomona obviously is like iconic, historic.
Bristol, because it's Bristol.
Bristol is super cool.
Englishtown was one we lost that a lot of people were,
Englishtown had like real soul. That's
It
what I
did.
felt when I was there. Like there was like, it almost felt like there were like ghosts there.
I was just going to
something.
say there were skeletons there, you know?
Yeah, it had something that's still to this day probably my favorite. And I hated certain parts of it. Like that deal was like almost entirely operated, I think, by like the state police.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Like if you
Yep.
didn't have the right sticker on your credential, you were getting accosted by some cop, and that shit drove me insane. I think that was like the first time that I ever like flipped a real fit and like demanded that I get a hard card from NHRA. I'm like, listen, I am not fighting these cops at the tower anymore. Like I need whatever I need to not get in trouble, because it wasn't like rent-a-cops. They were like state policemen, like real officers. It was kind of scary.
They had that in Gainesville this year too, and there may or may not have been a small incident with myself and one of them, but it was same thing. Oh yeah, it was not good.
Yeah.
I mean, why are those guys there and in charge of that situation? Like,
I think it's just up to the track what kind of of security. And at Gainesville, I know this for a fact, it was because they shut the road down and make it go one way, and so the police were in charge of the flow of traffic in and out. So they had the big gates coming in. I mean, I don't know if they were the ones on the starting line, but they were the ones that were monitoring as you come in, and then when you get into that ticket gate because of the shutting down of the road.
The place is bonkers. I think Gainesville is another one that's like you feel like you're somewhere special. You know, like it's a little like the new tower and stuff. It's got like some of the modern amenities and whatnot, but it has some heart and soul for sure.
When you go down the return road and you see all those people along the fence, you know it's a racer's racetrack when stands are full or not, and it's just that chunk of 8th mile on at the end of the racetrack.
Yeah, that place is
so
freaking
cool.
special, man. It really and that's the thing is like JT mentioned this on the show several weeks ago, but I do think that it's like it's a good analogy in that restaurants go out of business all the time, close down. It doesn't mean people stop eating. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean food has gone out of fashion. I mean, it's just, and it's tough. I mean, a lot of these guys, I mean, you can't fault the Bandimeres. I actually said this to Tammy Bandimere in Charlotte a couple of weeks ago, that they're taking a little bit of heat or whatever, but it's guys, how can anybody fault these folks? They have done more than their fair share. 65 years. They've done more than their fair share for the sport and for a multitude of other things. I mean,
and they were there working it. They were there working it themselves every weekend. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, you know, if the trash needed emptied, you see the traction twins going down through there, emptying the trash, not sending somebody else to do it. You know,
no, I mean, and they had like a big mission there. Like if you read John Bandimere Jr.'s book, like he literally is spreading the gospel. Like I mean, he
There's
felt
a
like
reading
that was
program. Tammy's got a reading program for kids all over that place. And did you guys, I didn't know this, and maybe I just tunnel vision again, but I didn't realize that Compulink was kind of birthed underneath the Bandimere umbrella. Did you guys know anything about that?
Well, and they're like the nation, like the worldwide leader on CompuLink. Like if you have a trouble with your timing systems, you're calling Larry Crisp.
And Tammy Bandimere came on right off track last week. And actually on Thursday, I just posted the clip of it. Shameless plug, go check it out. But it's about a 2-minute clip of she explained that when she was a teenager, was working the time slip booth, and they had little index cards, and she had a computer screen, and she had 30 seconds to write it out. So she would write like reaction time, 60-foot ET. And she went up to the tower and was like bitching to her dad, like, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. This job sucks. And that sparked the whole idea. And then CompuLink was birthed, and they were printing time slips down there. I had no idea that little story kind of came from there until Tammy started talking on my podcast. I'm like, no kidding.
Do a temperature controlled starting line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, like all the things that they have done. And the thing, one of the
tire, the drag, the tire rotator,
the rotator. I mean, so many things. I mean, they've made those spray tanks, the scraper deal that goes on the front of a skid steer. There's such an innovative group of people, and it's all rooted in like drag racing. Like they're the realest of real, but they also, it's that spirit of innovation, I think, will live on, because I think that's like I told Tammy Bandimere, the Bandimere legacy will live on forever. That place doesn't have running water, right?
Yeah,
like they literally, I mean, it's all pumped in water. I mean, it's all well water or whatever that's like on site in a tank. So just to think of what they've been able to execute at that facility with all the logistical issues that they have being carved out of the side of a mountain, it's unbelievable. And I do think that that's how their legacy continues in the sport is all those things. I mean, I didn't even know the time slip situation, but from that to the rotator to the way they prep tracks. And really, I point to when we put the Traction Twins on the cover of Drag Illustrated. Mike, how long ago was that? When we had Cale and Cody Crisp on the cover of the magazine?
Man, I think it's almost 10 years now.
I think that they really introduced this era that we're still in right now of like the track prep guru. They were the first guys that were like traveling around the country and in the world, going to Abu Dhabi, going to Bahrain, going to Qatar, going all over creation, prepping these racetracks. And they've really ushered in that new era of ultimate track prep, which we've talked at times, you know, some of it, we've argued that like, oh man, they set the bar so high for what is expected of a racetrack. It's tough, man. I mean, it's very difficult to live up to what the Traction Twins were able to produce, you know, back in the day. I guess it's hard to believe.
And they've said that they're looking to continue on. I mean, that'll be interesting to see what comes of that. And again, no one can blame them if they don't, and if they're done and they've earned that. But I think especially like we're talking about Cale and Cody Crisp, that they, you know, being the younger generation of that family, they may have an interest in continuing on with that legacy.
That's
somewhere
the difference.
else. So
like the HRP thing, you know, and I've never speak poorly about the Angel family. Everybody has the right to do whatever, but 2 generations, uncle, grandpa, dad passed away, and it was kind of just put on these kids, and they had their own businesses and their own lives. And, you know, just because we want it to continue doesn't mean that that's what their life needs to be devoted to. But the Bandimere family is very different in that sense. And so I have hope that even partnering up with somebody like maybe not in Denver, there's a whole bunch of markets that have opened up that don't have drag strips anymore that could use something like that, to where they're not having to put all their eggs in that basket, but they partner up with somebody. And I've heard a couple of little birdied things here and there, but I think it would be really cool if they continue. But also, if they don't, let's get off their back.
Yeah, I agree. If I have my guess or my bet, and this is what, if I were them, man, I know multiple track owners that sent their staff, and I'm talking about like from the lowest rung guys to high level guys, they would send them to Bandimere for their major events just to watch and learn. Like,
wow.
I mean, I've talked to multiple track owners who told me, oh man, when I have a new hire, the first thing I do is send them to the Mile High Nationals. I call Sporty, I call the Bandimeres and tell them that I'm sending them, and I you know, stay out of the way, but watch and learn, take notes, because no one does it better. And I venture to say that Sporty Bandimere and his crew, Larry Crisp and everybody else involved out there, could stay busy for the rest of their lives just teaching people how to do it.
Dude, and then multiple drag strips flourish and not just one.
And that's because that actually, and I think that this is like a fun, there is a silver lining. You got to look hard for it. But our only hope as a sport should be, I think, is that the Bandimere family, now that they will not have to focus all their energy on Denver, Colorado, will be able to spread that. Because if that happens, and you talk about Sporty Bandimere and company having an involvement at tracks all around the country, that is a big, big positive for the sport of drag racing. And you can't fault them. I mean, they've been landlocked. You know, they got to focus on Thunder Mountain. But now that maybe they don't have to focus on Thunder Mountain, I don't know that it would be the best thing. Now, granted, maybe they don't want to travel. Maybe they don't want to get away from home. I understand. There's all sorts of logistic things, and everybody, like you said, it's their life, not ours. But I think that that's the best possible thing that could come from this, is them helping other promoters, helping other track operators for a living. I mean, it's a business. I mean, we're in an era of gurus and educators, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, holy moly, everywhere you look, there's a guru teaching you how to do something or how to do something better or get your certificate for this. I mean, I know that I would pay to go to the Bandimere boot camp, right? So, all right. Anyways,
that place ran like a well-oiled machine when you showed up.
Yeah,
I mean, it was crazy.
Norwalk is another one that always comes to mind. The Bader family.
Yeah,
and that's somewhere you'd send someone to learn how it's done. And they even issued a press release recently. Did you see this? About that they're going to finally have to raise the price of their ice cream.
Yes.
That they've held the line on the $1 for a pound of ice cream for all these years through who knows how many price increases and all the inflation. And finally it's you know, too much. And so I forget what the number is now, but it's
$3, I think.
Extremely
I knew it was coming. It
number.
wasn't in the media center for the number one qualifiers and winners this year. That's so funny. That's the first thing Erica said when we got up there. She said, well, I wanted to get ice cream. They're like, oh, we can't do it. No more free ice cream.
So yeah, times are changing, but that's another family that has devoted who knows how much resources and time and energy and generations to the sport. And, at some point, maybe in a similar type of deal with the Bandimeres.
While we're here solving all the world's problems, how about, are you guys excited for that? I mean, two things that I'm particularly excited about. And Courtney, one of these I know is near and dear for you. We got the Pro Stock Callout coming up in a week at Chicago. But just in general, the thing that I'm excited about is drag racing's return to Route 66 Raceway in Joliet, Illinois. What's your thoughts, man? I mean, I think it's exciting that drag racing is in. It seems I've never understood why that didn't work or what the issue was.
We're getting a track back. We talk about all losing tracks, like
we're getting one back.
It seems we're getting one back.
Dude, drag racing, Chicago, Illinois is like a hotbed for this shit. Like I've never really understood how. I don't know if that's a classic example of a place being so big that it was just an impossible task to fill it. I don't know. I mean, it's like a legit stadium style seating drag strip, but I'm glad to see it back on the tour. And it's cool that the NHRA Pro Stock Callout is there. I know they had a media call, I think, this week. What's the latest on that? Who's Erica? Is she going to get to call someone out, or was she going to get called out?
Yes. So they do it. It's the top 8 from last year. So I'm cheating here. We've got Erica, Christian, TJ, Dallas, Hartford, Koretsky, Aaron, and Camry. And so of those 4 today, actually, as soon as we started filming the show, yesterday, they did a press conference with all 8 of the drivers. Media could be there, ask questions. No call outs have happened yet. But before I even get into that, I just think that this is so cool. And I always preach this and I always get crap for it. But they always start with Top Fuel and Funny Car with cool stuff like this. And I get it. The shootouts, the call outs, anything that they do, they experiment with and they see if the market can handle it at the top level. But I think that Pro Stock has always been so much more competitive and so much closer of racing. And there's always been, all these little battles and the KBs versus the Elites and the Warrens versus all the things. Like I feel like it's grittier, it's grungier. And so this has, since the call out came out with the fuel, this has been a Pro Stock thing to me that I feel like it would have just slam dunk in the Pro Stock world. And that's looking like what it's going to do. And it's a bunch of young people. That's something that's the most surprising to me is, we've got Greg Anderson. I don't know. I may have just misspoken. Then it's not the top 8. I don't know why he's not in there. I'm going to fact check. I'm going to have to figure that out. But Pro Stock has always been known as like the old man's club, right? Like the gearhead. But this is, you got 2 chicks and you probably got all of them under 40. I'm pretty sure. I don't know how old Matt Hartford is. And I think that's huge for Pro Stock. So we're going to have a ton of media with Pro Stock this weekend. Friday, they get up on stage. Nobody knows who's calling anybody out until we get up on stage. And I think it's going to be way more raw than people think.
Like, I think Matt Hartford will be excited that you think that he's under 40.
Is he not? Well, I mean, his hair is blonde. I can't tell.
I've been thinking about doing that. Just as a side note,
you're going blonde.
He's
thinking about dyeing my hair blonde.
He's stuck with it long enough that it's back now.
That blonde
kept with it.
That blonde with that red skin would. I don't know,
man. I was thinking about doing like the bleach blonde, like Eminem.
Yeah, I know like exactly what you're saying. That's
Let's find out how old Matt Hartford is. I got.
But real quick, don't you think the thing?
Matt's 51.
What?
Really?
The blonde is working. Okay,
really?
We got one guy over 40 on this.
Yeah.
Deal.
Matt Hartford.
I thought Matt was probably 41.
Me too. I thought it was like early 40s, mid 40s. January 8th, 1972. That makes him 51, right?
That is impressive. Way to go, Blondie.
I love it. Yeah. How about it? Well, don't you think Pro Stock's just a little chippier? Like you were saying, grungy and gritty, but man, it's like I used to tell people this and they wouldn't really believe me, but like the staging lanes during Pro Stock, they're like, it's not a friendly place. You know what I mean? Like, it's really not. Like, it's you go there and you can feel the chippiness. Like, you're just it's not like high fives and hugs, you know? And I mean, it's just really not. So that's what I have struggled with both the Funny Car call out deal and the Top Fuel call out is those classes they're not very chippy. And it seems like look at how big of a deal it was when there was a little bit of chippiness between Josh Hart and Sean Langdon. I mean, like that story literally almost crashed our server at dragillustrated.com because I think it's so out of character.
Right.
Like none of that doesn't happen in fuel racing, really.
Oh, and it is alive and well in Pro Stock. And it's funny, we'll get people, the social media, the keyboard warriors, and even people at our ropes that are like, oh, it must be fake. Like y'all are, it's not.
It's not.
Like we respect each other. And I think the KB Elite thing, the Erica Greg thing, like that's definitely fizzled out. Greg is a great guy. He comes over, jokes around, all that. But I think that's because the rivalry went on so long and was so good and so intense that it almost is like a respect level thing. And it's like, okay, we've gotten past it. It's
you get to it at some point, right?
Yeah. But now you've got all these young kids.
It's time for Erica to snap another photo in front of his trailer with the trophy.
Do you remember
Fire
that?
thing
So
back up.
tell us, why don't you tell that story? Because like JT may not even know about this. So like,
we didn't win a race for 10 years that Erica was running Pro Stock, and Greg Anderson went on TV. And again, this is no heat towards Greg. We joke about this all the time. I love GA. He went on record saying that somebody was going to be the first to lose to the girl, I quote, and it wasn't going to be him. And so Erica raced him in the finals a couple times, didn't come through. And then in Chicago in 2012, she actually ended up beating him in the finals. And whoever was interviewing back then, I don't even remember, kind of asked him about it. And they said, you said you weren't going to be the guy. And he owned up and said, I have to eat my words here. So we leave the winner's circle, all of that. And Erica's walking by the trailer, and our sponsor at the time, Gaston Kirby, God rest his soul, he passed away, great guy, passed his trailer, and Erica has the trophy in her hand, fire suit half up. And he's like, pause, let me take a picture. And she just posted up. And before social media was rowdy as it was, I think that we were one of the first people to just unhinge drag racing social media with that. And I mean, you'd have thought Erica just like threw up some kind of gang sign or did something traumatic. But in her defense, like he said, he wasn't going to be the one. He was the one. And little Erica, with her first win ever, becoming the first female to do that, that was just a really cool, monumental moment to be able to beat the guy who was the best that's doing it at the time. And we got so much flack.
Dude, that deal, like
that was a big deal. I remember seeing that.
They still talk about it.
And that's a cool, that's cool tie-in back to Chicago, going back to Chicago again this weekend. That's where Erica got her first win for a female in Pro Stock history. Put her on the cover of the magazine with that shot down there on top end as she was doing the interview. So
I watched that interview the other day on YouTube, just like I was actually like just scouring the internet for content and whatnot, looking for ideas. And I came across that fateful day in 2012. And it was funny because I was blown away. She killed the interview. Even then. And it almost, if you closed your eyes, she sounded, I mean, she called, what is his name? Gary Gerald. She does that same thing where she always, which is a great interview skill. Like if it's for those that are paying attention, like she mentions the name of the person she's talking to. So it's like, oh, thank you so much, Amanda. When she's talking to Amanda Busick, she did the same thing with Gary Gerald, however many years ago in 2012, when she beat Greg in the final. What a moment that really was.
And Greg was at like the height. I mean, Greg's been at the height of his powers for a very long time, but he was really, really at the height then. And he almost was the bad guy. And everyone was kind of sick of him winning. And Erica was the, upstart,
little princess.
First female, all these things. And then now it's like roles are reversed. Erica
she's the bad
is
guy
on top, and she's the one that everybody's coming after and got a chip on her shoulder, and everyone's gunning for her. So it's funny to see that role reversal over time. And here we go back to Chicago this weekend.
I'm very, very excited.
Do you think that Erica, so I remember this time, and I know we're fixing to wrap up here, but as we kind of close the show, one more time, I want to give it up for all of our sponsors: Stroud Safety, Redline Synthetic Oils, FloRacing, Type A Motors, Racers Club. Appreciate the support of the show. To kind of close, I remember there was this moment in NBA basketball where LeBron had left Cleveland, became the villain of all sports, essentially, and went, took his talents to South Beach, and they struggled. The Miami Heat struggled initially, and there were a lot of people, myself included. He was talking about how he was embracing the role of villain, and he was comfortable getting booed, and he was fine with that, and he was going to be the bad guy and embrace that. And it really didn't work out. And he actually later talked about how he had to get back to playing basketball with joy and like enthusiasm and shake loose this desire to be the bad guy, to desire to be the villain. I'm just curious, like with you have a front row seat to everything that's going on right now. Do you think that any of that holds true with an Erica Enders, where she's kind of gotten to this point where no more nice Erica? Do you think that there will be a point when because she has nothing left to prove, right? So is she going to almost have to shake the chip?
I think it could go either way with her, because you say she has nothing left to prove, and I believe that, and I tell her that every single second of the day. But if anybody knows Erica on a personal level, like, her entire soul is invested in what she's doing, and it's almost to a fault, to where, you know, if they're not performing well, like, it affects her as a human being. And I think that the no more nice Erica kind of came from a fact of where, for so long, like, even through what we just talked about with the photo with Greg, for so long, she felt like she had to bite her tongue and just be poised and be this position and this role model for girls and women and young people who go through the system. And she just kind of got tired of taking shit and just having to be that role. And she just said, screw it. You know, I'm just going to start to say what I think. And I think I've earned it by performing on the track, that I get to be who I am in these interviews, and people still respect me and know that I'm still a good person and I'm not out to get anybody, but I'm not going to take your shit. And so that's where I think the No More Nice Erica came from. And it worked so well last year, because there was just so much hate. And we talked about this in the green room and didn't end up doing it. And I'm glad we didn't, but people online and people who don't really know what's going on, that affects her. And she may get mad at me for saying this, but she's a sweetheart. Like, of the two of us, she is the soft one. Like, she cares what people think, and she cares if kids are looking up to her, and she cares if people like her, and she cares if people boo when she loses. And so I think it's kind of, it just depends on which Erica you're going to get, because she wants to kick your ass and doesn't care what you think, but also she wants you to like her, and she wants you to think that she's still good. And she has this kind of concept right now of, like, after we had to back her up again in Charlotte for the second time this year, her car wouldn't start. It was so sweet and innocent. I leaned in the car. I said, "You okay? What do you need?" She had her balaclava still on and helmet off, and she goes, "What's happening to me?" And it was just so raw and sweet. And she's like, "I'm not good anymore." And, like, nobody else thinks that but her. But I think that's what makes her so great too, is now with 5 races in, we've only won 2 rounds. All of a sudden, she's Erica 2012 that thinks she has to go prove to the world again. So watch out.
Yeah,
that may be fun to watch.
Yeah,
I think it is going to be. I mean, and it's
good insight there.
She gets into, I think that having been around her as much as I have over the years, like, she holds on to those, like, sentimental things. Like, I wouldn't want to race her in Chicago. Like, you know that she's going to go there and get in her feels a little bit, and she's going to, you know, probably tell some stories, and there's going to be, oh, do you remember? And all that stuff matters, in my opinion. Like, it matters. So it'll be interesting to see how
we're testing our asses off this week, so we've got to figure it out. I don't want to dive into it. It's not Tech Tuesday, but we're missing something there, and I don't know if it's spread too thin, because we've got Christian running well and all the things, but there's some kind of angry gremlin in that red car, and we gotta finesse it.
I think it's just a good reminder to everyone that you can have there. It takes more than all the money. It takes more than all the best equipment. And it's probably, the best driver. It takes more than all of that. I mean, it takes this real harmonious relationship between all of those aforementioned items to have success in drag racing. And again, I think that's why this sport is so special, and why I think, you know, I wake up every day, like, determined. I mean, you talk about chip on your shoulder, something to prove, like, to share this sport with the world, because it really is. It takes 1 million people. It takes $1 million, and it takes like the stars and moon aligning for the car to start and get off the starting line,
literally,
let alone get there first. So anyway, hats off to anybody. I think our sport across the board, we don't give the people who choose to do this enough credit, because, I mean, think about this past weekend. There's however many cars at the import race I was talking about, 400 cars in Indy, all these cars out on the East Coast at the House of Hook. And that's 3 tracks of the hundreds that exist in this country. No prep races going on all over. So, NMCA, NMRA,
Odessa.
at Sofia. Funny car chaos in Odessa. This is, I mean, it's almost unbelievable how many men and women, young, old, every race, creed, color, choose to do this every weekend.
And only a few come out a winner. Yeah, very few, and that's always the challenge.
Not easy. That's the takeaway from Erica's struggles. It's not. Look at her. It's not easy. They were hot.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, they were hot.
And we didn't change a thing. Like literally
Right.
after Gainesville, after we were on the pole, actually number 2, TJ was on the pole. That car didn't start. Have not figured it out ever since. Didn't change anything. It's a fickle little bitch. Excuse my French, but it is.
It really is, man. And so a tip of the cap to anybody out there watching that chooses to go drag racing and fight the good fight. I mean, I tell the story of my dad, like watched my dad burn up like a marriage and a bank account, chasing the pro stock dream. That's what I always joke, you know? And that's those sacrifices are everywhere. People making massive sacrifices, time away from family, time away from businesses, their own health and well-being. I mean, how many lives have this sport, not even drivers, I mean, people that have just keeled over from years and years and years on the road, not taking care of themselves. I mean, I can't count how many people fall into that category. So God bless each and every one of you that choose to do it. Guys, hey, thank you so much. I appreciate it. We decided this week to kind of tighten the show up a little bit, not go on our normal 4-hour rant. So I appreciate you joining us, Courtney. It's always great to have you. Huge shout out to all you're doing at Flow. I see you rocking the brand there today. Thanks.
Listen, I was just going to say, we can't go without saying it. This was planned to tire before we knew.
Absolutely, man. It's coming soon. Major news coming soon. We got a big happening here in about 2 weeks. So appreciate
Thank y'all
all you guys
for always integrating Flow and what you guys do and all of that. I really appreciate you letting me come on and pretend like I know what I'm talking about.
Listen,
Good to have you.
All right,
The
guys.
rest of the job I want.
We'll see you next Wednesday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on the Drag Illustrated YouTube channel and Facebook page. And shout out, we're 150 people away from 500,000 followers on Facebook. Thank you guys so much. I can't even believe I'm saying that out loud.
Cool.
500K, guys. We'll see you next week.
Later.